Okay, so welcome everyone. This will kind of be a composite. I definitely will be sharing a lot of what Annette shared with us. In fact, I laughingly tell Annette sometimes that I have heard her speak so often that sometimes I have a sense that her voice is kind of inside my head, which I might not tell that to everyone, but I think you'll understand because I know each of you were drawn to this movement, probably for similar reasons as I was, for this strong desire to make a difference in healthcare, to really change the consciousness in healthcare, and ultimately to change the culture of healthcare. I have the sense that we are a beautiful, colorful, bright spring bouquet with lots of variety, lots of backgrounds and different nursing specialties, lots of varying interest in yoga. And yet at the core, we are all united for the same mission. So I still remember when Annette opened up with her webinar to us, and she was just expressing her excitement. She said, my heart is pounding, my heart is full of joy. I know that she is so grateful for each of us and for how we are contributing to the movement. So I'm also going to just share about bringing our own gifts to the table. What we're doing today will be going into a little bit review of the theory, the mission. I'll be weaving in stories that Annette shared. I'll be weaving in my own shares. So some of the things that Annette has talked about is how wonderful it is to be a nurse, to be among the few that are licensed to touch people, literally and figuratively, to be in the most trusted profession. That's huge. That's huge for us. So when we are nurses and also yoga teachers and also certified yoga nurses, we really have a formula for making a tremendous difference. We're doing our life and doing our career from a very conscious perspective. In fact, it might be said, as Annette's mentioned before, we're not really doing, we're undoing. We're undoing the things that may be holding us back. So while we're going to review the 7 essential postures and the sacred remedy, that's kind of the easy part. We'll also be delving a little bit more into some of what Annette calls the deeper work, what's behind the training, because it's what's behind the training is what will really make us successful and allow people to hear you and trust you. And again, I already know from what you've already shared that each of you already has a deep connection to your practice and to your community. So let me begin by a quick overview. I know when I certified as the first 3, that was me and Angela from Texas and Damaris from New Jersey. I still remember those webinars quite vividly. And, again, really look forward now that I'm kind of on the other side, getting to share what I've been learning with you. So we're also learning the mindset for yoga nursing. And some of the things we're going to cover will be setting the stage for the training and a little example about how Annette or I might teach the essentials and the sacred remedy, perhaps in a lunch and learn, or maybe in a one-to-one situation, or working in direct patient care. And then, of course, we're going to review how that's going to help us and help our patients. Because remember, yoga nursing is all about relieving stress for nurses and improving patient care. That's the simple definition. It's all about the benefits, right? And again, just reiterating about how important it is for the connection and the trust, which you already have. And there's a piece about inspiring. I know we all draw inspiration from different things, and I wouldn't call it a stretch to say we've all been inspired by Annette. So this is part of our work to inspire and instruct our students and our patients and our clients. And how are we doing that? We're relieving SAPs. Remember what SAPs are? Stress, anxiety, pain, and suffering. That's the SAPS model. And the only thing that I'll mention now is just tying into this idea of sacred service. Nurses, I think we know that we may be in a situation where we do have an opportunity to touch patients physically. We might be in direct patient care. We might be in hospice or palliative care, or we might be in telephone care, or we might be in another setting like I am in mental health where touch can be a boundary issue. So with that in mind, we bring to our sacred service this idea of deep presence. So that is what I already have a sense that I have from each of you now, and that is this sense of deep presence. We're all here together focusing on the webinar, on my words and Annette words, and of course when we share and have question and answer, we're going to show up and be really present for each of our colleagues. And we all know that in order to give sacred service, We must connect with that which is sacred. That's how your healing is felt. And as we mentioned before, this is how we can touch people without physically touching them. We can touch people in their heart center and they feel that. And we also must plug into that source. We must feel it first. Because when we feel it in our heart center, in our wiring, in our circuitry, that's when the transmission occurs. That's how we nurses become great healers. It's from the inside out, not the other way around. As Annette said, it's important for our students to understand. Because with yoga nursing, we're not being taught how to teach a traditional yoga class in a yoga studio. That's the real difference between yoga nursing and what might be considered traditional yoga teaching. We are essentially teaching the 7 seated postures and then the select standing postures. Anything over and beyond that becomes more of a traditional yoga class, and that in itself can imply more responsibility and more liability. And as yoga teachers, we already have a little bit more play in using our judgment in what we teach. But it's very important with our licensing that we're very congruent when we speak of something with yoga nursing. We're only portraying some of the yoga nursing postures. We're not bringing other postures to it, and so on and so forth. Taking a deep breath in and out. While we know the yoga nursing essentials are safe, effective, and anyone can do them, it's a therapeutic medical yoga, a precise remedy. That is what we are being taught. So from this, it does not mean you cannot bring your own personality and style into it, because of course, your students and clients are buying you. Breathe, relax, and feel your body receive its own truth. The seeds of freedom flowers in each of us whenever we are open to what is real, and to what is real for you. And this, again, is so important as we're teaching medical yoga, yoga as therapy yoga, united with nursing. This is how we are going to reach the vast majority of people who are intimidated by traditional yoga or traditional yoga classes. Now, as a yoga teacher or a yoga teacher and a nurse, we're offering this sacred service and practice, again, what makes us different. From a yoga teacher who is not a nurse, we know that as nurses and as yoga teachers, there are many patients and clients potentially who are simply not able to get onto the floor. And that's one of the big reasons why Annette created the sacred remedy based on the seated postures, as opposed to standing postures or rigorous postures. So we'll transition now and go into a little mini session, a way that I sometimes present and Annette's presented. And keep in mind that, when we're teaching a lunch and learn, for example, this is definitely something you can bring to your organization if you haven't already, when you took the earlier yoga nursing training. You could teach it in a private practice if you're in a group or in a hospital setting. If you're a nursing leader or a CNO, we all have different participants in yoga nursing in different places of sacred service. So the way we begin any session, whether it's one-on-one or a group, is of course to center. So I'm going to recenter myself right now. And I also get that this will be helpful for us all. So here we go. So sitting in your chair, let's go ahead and get a little bit more comfortable. Lengthening our spine, relaxing our shoulders, maybe doing a couple shoulder rolls, forward and back. Maybe bring the shoulders all the way up to the ears with an inhale and exhaling them down. Finding a comfortable spot for your shoulders to rest, perhaps lowering your eyelids or closing your eyes all the way. We all know that closing the eyes is the beginning of the relaxation response for the central nervous system. Allowing your hands to softly rest on your lap. Bring your awareness now to your breath. The great breath of life. Breathing into you. Becoming aware of that awareness that you are breathing. The awareness that has ever been with you since you were a child. Seeing and acknowledging that you are the great breath of life. If you like, you can bring one of your hands up by your chest, by your heart. If you wish, you can connect the movement of your breath as it rises and falls. Breathing in and expanding, and deflating and relaxing as you breathe out. And you're filling in, you're filling with love and joy and whatever feels really wonderful. When you're breathing out, you're releasing, letting go of any tension, anything that's in our way, anything that's no longer serving. Breathing in and out, going with the flow. Noticing how this simple practice begins to calm. Nothing to do, nowhere to go, but just continuing to be aware of this sacred breath of life coming in and going out. Perhaps beginning to allow a little movement to come to your fingers and toes. Perhaps give them a little wiggle. Slowly allow your eyes to flutter open. Awake, alert, aware. Fully capable of functioning and being present with ease and flow. So can we feel and see how this immediately shifts the energy? I make up that this is familiar to you because we're nurses, because we're yoga teachers. But what's really wonderful is for your clients and your patients, and sometimes even your family and friends that may or may not have been resistive, this can be a literal awakening, connecting with the breath. And we all know, whether we've been in a direct patient care on a busy floor or in a stressful administrative position, we all know that when our energy is frantic or anxious or stressed, we feel it, and that transmits to our colleagues and vice versa. And of course, this also translates when we're with again, our patients or our family or our loved ones. So creating some space for your clients and for ourselves and for your patients. I'm sure you can understand that Annette would say, if you do nothing else but teach them the sacred breath, that is enough, depending on where they're at, depending on what stage they may be in the so-called disease process. Then when appropriate, you can share the 7 essential postures. And Annette has said that when she's teaching at the hospital and teaching stress relief programs, remember that we are leading as a stress relief expert. There are a number of programs that I've done in my local community where using yoga in the tagline is perfectly okay. And I'm in Kentucky, and I was actually really surprised that I got such a warm reception by bringing in yoga, even bringing in the word yoga. But for some communities, for some areas, yoga might be something that's still a little bit of an eyebrow raiser. May not be in your community, but if it is, that's why Annette always says it's safe to lead as a stress relief and back safety expert. So when we're teaching stress relief programs, it ties in so perfectly with that SAPS model. Stress and pain, we are relieving SAPS, stress, anxiety, pain, and suffering. Any corporate organization or wellness organization will buy into stress and pain relief and back safety. And again, leading with yoga is good. It's working out okay for me. I know there's other areas where using the word yoga in the title, it may be better to lead with something like the back safety and stress relief. You can totally use your own judgment. You'll know. The other thing Annette brings into play that I think is so significant for us as, again, nurse entrepreneurs is this idea of how we are positioning ourselves. Do we want to position ourselves as a yoga teacher along with the other 50,000, give or take, yoga teachers in the United States and Canada? Hundreds of thousands, perhaps. Some or many of them barely making a living. And most of them certainly not nurses. Or how does it feel when we think about positioning ourselves as a nurse, medical, yoga teacher expert, or a mentor, coach, consultant? So, Annette also speaks about moving into a group setting at the hospital. As you probably already know, she already does this in her local community and often travels to teach. And she arranges it so that all of the employees can come in and take a stress relief program. Can you imagine how this would benefit perhaps a facility that you're working with or a facility in your community or organization that needs this? Annette does a 3-hour session 4 times a year with several hospitals. She offers it quarterly. However, she wants to remind us that, of course, it can be done in an hour. It can be done in a 50-minute lunch and learn. That's where most of my presentations have gone, have been a 50-minute lunch and learn. The beauty of this is that you get to design the program that you want. Now, it's kind of a given that the longer the program, the more content you've got to include. And in your training and your curriculum, there are loads of content. So again, you can see how we can modify our coaching and our lessons for our clients and patients. So regardless of who you're sharing this with, once everyone is feeling grounded and centered, we usually begin introducing the 7 essential postures. We'll even go through and practice a few now. Now, I might change my position a little bit. I may or may not be able to move back as far as Annette was able to, but as she would say, you'll totally be able to follow along with my languaging. So introducing the 7 essential postures, we'll say, all right, find that comfortable seated position again, sitting up nice and tall once again. Posture, just creating beautiful posture can be the beginning of transitioning from stress and anxiety and pain. Because the number one reason for chronic back pain is often related to chronic poor posture. So we are ever elongating the spine, creating space, taking a deep breath. The whole concept of creating more space in your body and in your mind, otherwise referred to as your body-mind. Pressing your sitting bones deep into the seat, deep into the ground, lifting up out of the waist, perhaps drawing the chin back slightly, relaxing your shoulders away from your ears. Beginning to inhale, practicing the 3-part breath, inhaling into the belly, the rib cage, all the way up to the chest. And then exhaling, gently drawing the belly button in towards your spine. Inhaling, we fill, lengthening, growing taller. Exhaling, gently drawing the belly in towards the spine. Repeating that a few times in our own pace, in our own way. Feeling the front of your body and the back of your body expanding like a balloon. Using those accessory muscles. And of course, as nurses, we get to explain that to our patients and our students when appropriate. Let's begin by bringing the arms out to the side. And we'll practice a sun breath. And the way I practice this and the way I practice with my groups is I say, and then we inhale, reaching those arms up to a level of comfort. It might be a T. If that's okay, you can absolutely stay here. If that's okay, you can inhale again and bring them up to a V. If that's okay and there's no restrictions, feel free to inhale them all the way up overhead. You can look up a little bit if there's no neck injuries. Otherwise, keep the neck neutral. Wherever your arm and hand level is, pull in some energy and prana, reaching your hands, reaching your fingers all the way up. If you're not glued to your computer now, you can totally go ahead and stand up and do a standing version of this. I'm going to remain seated for technical reasons. We're going to inhale, reaching the arms up. Exhaling, turning the palms down, moving slowly, floating the arms down. Moving slowly is moving safely. Sometimes once is enough. If you're doing a 50-minute lunch and learn, you quickly learn that you're not going to be repeating them over and over. You may do it once or twice, and then you move on to the next posture. I've really loved the 50-minute lunch and learn sessions because what I found is that I'm able to structure it so that the first 20 or 30 minutes, I get to share a little bit of the history of yoga and healthcare. I get to bring in Annette and the YogaNurse model. And meanwhile, the people I'm speaking to and sharing this with are eating. And I love being able to just listen and eat. And I make it interactive. I make it fun. I ask kind of impromptu questions. So I get people to raise their hands or maybe shout out an answer or two. But then when it comes to actually going into the postures, I get to check my time and I get to sort of gauge everyone's interest and ability. And I get to offer the sacred remedy, the 7 essential postures, in whatever number of repetitions fit in comfortably with the time. And what I found is that usually is anywhere from 1 to 3 times. And I usually do have them stand for standing mountain because most people, may be in a desk job where they are sitting a lot. Of course, if you're a nurse working the floor, you might be happy to sit for a while too. So I always give them a choice. The other thing I'll mention is I've heard it recently. I know Annette has addressed it, and I also heard it from someone else recently, and it really struck a chord with me. And that was this idea of being aware of how we use the word pause or break. I find that depending on who my audience is, really impacts whether or not they take those words as I mean them. For example, if I'm working a busy floor and I might say something like, I'm just going to take a quick pause, or I'm going to take a quick break. My sense is that myself and other people that are working the floor, sometimes that feels really scary, because there's a sense of, oh my goodness, if I stop, if I pause, I'm going to be even farther behind. And that can kind of defeat the purpose of releasing franticness. So a word that I've enjoyed using, and I know Annette uses it, is the word transition, because we all transition, right? So I found myself wording this phrase, whether I'm at work or whether I'm teaching a lunch and learn, sharing it as, how can I create a transition that is healthy for me? Maybe this transition will mean taking a few deep breaths before I enter a patient's room. Maybe it means transitioning as I'm scanning meds, getting ready to give them. I find myself stand up a little taller, take a moment to recognize that the floor is beneath my feet, and that I can be really grounded from the hips down, really tall from the waist up. Just little simple changes with the way we may say things. We all know what a big difference that can make. So feel free to make all of these things your own. So the next posture is the half moon. And for this also, I give people lots of options. So again, sitting up nice and tall in seated mountain, bringing our hands and arms out to our side. With an inhale, bringing the hands and arms up to a level of comfort. If there's any shoulder issues, feel free to rest fingertips on shoulders if there's an injured shoulder. You're going to inhale really tall. And then as you exhale, bending over a little bit to the right. Bending over a little bit to the right, creating more space in the side of the body, creating more space for the breath, releasing it whenever you need to. Inhaling, come up to center. Exhaling, the arms back down. And again, as nurses, we have a distinct advantage of possibly being aware of someone's injury. We may already know that they have a rotator cuff injury, or we may already know that they have limited range of motion. But then again, if we're in a group setting, we may not know that. So of course, we're always giving people permission to make it their own. So of course, other side. From mountain, inhaling the arms up to a level of comfort. Maybe fingertips resting on shoulders. Inhaling nice and tall. Exhaling, bending over a little bit to the left, to the other side. Allowing a breath or two here if it's available to someone, coming out whenever they need to. Creating more space in the side body. Inhaling, coming up to center. Exhaling, slowly releasing down. I love checking in with people and checking in about sensation. A lot of people are really surprised at the amount of sensation that they have just by practicing that simple posture. Another variation that you can repeat, time permitting, of course, repetition is good if you have the time, is to put one hand on the hip and the other hand gently reaching up and over. I like to call this pouring the tea position. So for this, I might have my hand on my left hip, might inhale my right arm up, inhaling nice and tall, and then exhaling, bending over to the left, maybe pressing my hand down into my hip, get that sense of groundedness. Again, releasing it whenever anyone needs to. With the next inhale, coming back up to center. Exhaling down, sometimes making a sigh, making it audible. And of course, other side. So putting the other hand on the hip, bring the other hand down, inhaling that free arm up and over. Inhaling nice and tall, exhaling to that other side, releasing tension, releasing stress and anxiety, helping the kidneys and our adrenal glands and our digestion, creating more lymph flow, cleansing the immune system. Whenever you're ready, inhaling up, exhaling, slowly lowering the hand and arm back down. We're giving them lots of options is always really practical. So we're going to interlace our fingers and hands in the temple position with the next inhale, reaching the arms out, up overhead. Steepling the fingers, pointing that finger out. Again, you can absolutely modify this, but you can say, look, if you have no injuries and this feels really good, you can do the full temple position. And then you can inhale tall, exhale to the side with me now if you're repeating. Nice. Inhaling back up. Relaxing the shoulders. Inhaling tall, exhaling, moving over to the other side. A breath or two here. And then inhaling up, releasing the hands, exhale, slowly lowering those hands and arms back down. So once again, options, options, options. And for those of you that are already teaching modified yoga, this will come really freely for you. For anyone who is used to teaching a more rigorous yoga class, these are just really good things to remember. And as nurses, again, I think we have a distinct advantage of being attuned where other people may not. The other thing I'll mention from a really practical standpoint that I love about the yoga nursing model is that it's extremely safe for group classes in a hospital setting where there's privacy issues and you can't really necessarily ask if people have injuries. In the hospital where I teach yoga, it's a mental health facility. The patients are cleared by the doctor during history and physical. They're cleared for activity as tolerated. And I may have anywhere from 3 to 25 people in a group. And I can't ask them if they have injuries. I do learn from them their first name, and I ask them to think about how they're feeling, and I ask them to rate their stress level on a scale of 0 to 10, with 0 being no stress and 10 being a lot of stress. And I in part use that scale because it was pointed out to me, and of course I remembered this, but at the time I was initially reversing it. I was using a relaxation scale, and people said, well, we're used to rating our pain. So we're kind of using it as the SAPS scale almost, 0 being no SAPS, 10 being a lot of SAPS. It's all related. But the beauty about these postures is I get to include all these modifications and give people absolute permission to make it what they need to. And I will say to the group, your only job is to take care of your body. So if I am explaining a posture or a pose and any part of that sounds like it might not be safe or right for you, absolutely, not only feel free, but I insist that you simply sit or stand quietly where it is comfortable until it feels okay to join in again. That covers me from a liability standpoint because I'm not asking specific physical limitations. And I'm also not creating any sense of any one particular person being scrutinized, which is really important in the type of classes I offer. So that was a little side note. So again, the modifications, I love that I have the options, supporting the T, the fingertips on the shoulders, the full steeple. It's great in a group, whether it be a lunch and learn or a group class, because people can all kind of do their own thing and feel okay about it. Feel that that's okay. And of course, Annette frequently reminds us, and I know it's true, how good these postures feel if we're working. If we're working as a nurse, how we can model these poses, how we can make it fun for our colleagues. I'm sure we're familiar with nursing as a profession. We're used to just going and going and going. And many of us don't even take one moment, even 5 or 10 seconds to just stretch your arms up overhead or do a little side bend. And of course, what we know is that this is extremely important. And it also is shared that her experience is, and mine too, is that many people, when they first learn the essentials, if they are yoga teachers and they've been yoga teachers for a long time, it's easy for them to just think, oh, well, geez, this is so simple, simplistic. They're used to teaching expanded yoga postures in a yoga studio setting. And what we have learned, or what we found out, is that when we hear back from them, once they have taken the yoga nursing essentials out into the world as a nurse, into their nursing life, that they are kind of astounded at the overwhelmingly positive response and the benefits that just the so-called simple movements can make in a person's life. Of course, I truly hope, I know that I've been sitting the whole time. I hope you know that, of course, you can sit or stand, whatever is most comfortable. I can't see you, so I'm trusting you're just taking care of yourself. So you can also understand that the 7 essential postures, we're integrating the movements of the spine that we know is so important. With this little demonstration and integration of teaching today, playing both the parts of the student and the teacher. The essential movements of the spine, the forward bend, a back bend like the cobra, the seated cobra, the side bend to each side, and a spinal twist. And of course, we can share how beneficial these are with our patients, with our clients, with our colleagues. So important for range of motion. So for the seated twist, Annette shares a couple different versions that I really like. And again, Annette mentions that for the certification, we're just kind of reviewing. We're skipping around a little bit. We're kind of touching on this and going here. And the idea is that you've got the audio, you've got it in video. We're just playing with more variations, and we're just reviewing it on how it can be used in real life. So one way she teaches the seated twist that I really like also is having people have your hands out in front of you as if you were holding onto the steering wheel. Students love this. Even kids love this, but of course, anyone of any age loves this. So we're pretending that we're driving. And Annette and I too have examples galore of patients that have told us, especially the women, that their husbands have become so stiff that they don't feel safe when they're driving because they can't really look over their shoulder to check for their blind spots. They don't really have that range of motion. It's scary. And as you know, especially people as we get older, we all want to maintain our independence and we all want to be safe. So if we can help give them postures that can help increase that range of motion safely, that's really key. So if we have our hands at shoulder level, I'm imagining you can see me, you know what I'm doing. So we're going to inhale nice and tall, and then we're going to exhale, moving from the torso, still holding that steering wheel, moving over to one side, twisting a little bit to one side. Allowing a breath or two here, if that's okay. Coming back to center whenever is needed. Another breath or two to regroup. And again, inhaling tall, and slowly moving from the torso, twisting a little the other direction. And a breath or two here, if that's available. And then releasing that, coming back to center. Always moving slowly, moving safely. And meaning that expanding the range of motion expands our quality of life. Sacred movement, our sacred breath, our sacred rest. We really began sacred rest with the centering. And we moved into the sacred breath a little more fully. And we touched upon some sacred movements. And again, we're taking resting points. And here too, where the verbiage kind of comes in handy. Certainly, people that we maybe work with in a cardio setting or that have respiratory, that are respiratory compromised, for them calling rest point or pause point, really wonderful because it gives them permission to rest. It gives them permission to pause in between these postures where there might be a little bit of exertion, a little bit of challenge. And I may change the verbiage if I'm speaking to a coworker. I may not say, let's take a break, because she was probably going to say, oh, I don't have time, I can't take a break. So I can use the word transition or pause or come on, it'll be fun. Don't make me look like I'm the only one doing this. And usually he or she will join in. So we'll practice another seated twist variation. And that would just be using, bringing one hand to the side or the back of the chair, finding a comfortable parking place for that. If you are standing now, you're welcome to sit for this. So let's say we'll bring our right hand behind us just a little bit. Inhaling nice and tall, exhaling, bringing that left hand across the body to rest on the right knee. Again, inhaling really tall, and then exhaling, moving from the torso, turning a little bit to the right. Gaze can either be at the floor or slightly over the right shoulder. Massaging the internal organs, improving the immune system. Then whenever you need to, slowly release that, coming back to center. Switching sides, bringing that left hand behind us a little bit, finding a comfortable place to rest or to hold on to the back of the chair. Inhaling tall, exhaling, bringing that right hand across the body, resting on the left knee or the left thigh. And again, with the next inhale, being tall, and exhaling, moving from the torso a little bit to the left. How's our breathing? Smooth and steady. Slowly coming back to center whenever it feels good. We touched again on the value of this for everyone, but especially for respiratory patients. And Annette has been invited numerous times as a guest teacher to teach the cardio patients in the outpatient setting. And again, they usually need that little break in between. And here again is the beauty of the Yoga Nursing Essentials, is we get to show its relevance to no matter what challenges someone may be experiencing. I love that we have cardiac nurse practitioners. I love that we have mental health nurses. I love that we have people that specialize in home health. I love that we have people that specialize in telephone care. Because these are all people that need what we have to offer. And of course, when we talk about the ABCs of yoga nursing, the ABCs of nursing, airway, when we talk about these postures being huge for those whose airway might be compromised, we have all this evidence that the yogic breathing helps the air get into all those little alveoli in the dead space. How important that is for those with COPD. Being able to take someone deeply into these practices. We really have an opportunity to help people, asthmatics, etc., cleanse their airways, create more ease with their breath, create more ease with their life. Loving that the twist also is a way that we aren't doing the twist. We're practicing the twist so that our body can undo the knots that are binding us. So we're going to transition a little bit. We're going to transition with a big breath in and sighing it out. Let's move into a little bit of yoga nursing theory and definitions. I tend to talk really fast when I'm excited. And as you probably gathered, I'm pretty excited. So I was making a very conscious effort to slow down and be really articulate. And then I noticed I do still have a lot more material to cover. So I ask for what I know you already are giving me, and that is your full attentiveness. Okay? All right. So let's start again with that big breath. Inhaling nice and deep. Exhaling with a sigh. Maybe turn up the corners of your mouth if you haven't smiled in a while. I tend to think we probably smile quite a bit, but a lot of our patients and clients don't. It's nice to remind them. Okay, so we're kind of sailing right into, moving smoothly into a review of some yoga nursing theory and definitions. So if I were to ask you right now, and of course I won't, we're just checking in, how would you feel if you were asked to give a definition of yoga nursing? Maybe you're in the elevator and who gets on but Oprah? And Oprah smiles and just says offhandedly, "What do you do for a living?" And you have 30 seconds to make a difference and get your message out there. You remember your message as an expert? How you are changing the world? You have an idea that is so worth sharing, and it is making a difference in healthcare. So what would you say? So of course, we go into this more in the marketing piece a little later. There's another marketing audio, and I know that Annette does not want to overwhelm anyone at this point. So we're going to save that for a little bit later. So now we're just, again, kind of revisiting this definition of yoga nursing. It's all over Annette's website. It's definitely something that she puts up in a prominent way because it really explains the language of yoga nursing, and she wants us to get that too. And Annette made it very clear with all the certification trainings that if she's going to be licensing us, she wants us to be able to teach it in such a way that she feels absolutely confident as the licensor. We are the licensees and she is the licensor. So we all want and need to be distilling the same message. If we think of yoga nursing licensure as a mini franchise, and we compare it to any of the major manufacturers, let's say McDonald's, which got a laugh from all of us when Annette said that, because none of us are really big fans of, I know I'm not a big fan of McDonald's, but I love that immediate visual pop-up for me is the golden arches and the fact that it says billions and billions served. So that part I get. I like that, part of the analogy of McDonald's. We are serving billions of people. So again, even though Annette and I are not particularly fans of McDonald's, she used that as a good point to illustrate. When someone gets a hamburger, or I'd love to see some veggie burgers there at their local McDonald's in the hometown or in any town anywhere in the country, or even in China or Italy, it's the same recipe. People essentially get about the same thing. That's the branding. That's the licensing and the formula and the information. And that's what you're getting with your licensing. We're all getting that formula, and it is all over Annette's website. So the basic definition of yoga nursing, of course, is the union of yoga and nursing. What does a yoga nurse do? Are you thinking about it? When Annette asks you this in the exam, she's going to want us to own it. You want to be able to say it in your sleep. It's part of the software of your soul because it's so simple. What does a yoga nurse do? A yoga nurse relieves stress, anxiety, pain, and suffering. Well, that's all well and good. And how do we turn that into something positive? We create peace, health, and wisdom. I'm relieving stress, anxiety, pain, and suffering, and creating peace, health, and wisdom. So we give you variations on the theory and foundation. You can use this in a variety of ways, in a variety of descriptions in your languaging. There's several ways you can say it. However, there's always an underlying integrity in how you say it. That's the point, the integrity, honoring the theory and the practice. So God willing, we are all going to carry this forward into our practices. And Annette will say that it is this army of yoga nurses that will carry this into nursing history as a legacy. Because we all know instinctively, intuitively, that we cannot change the culture, the nursing culture, without changing nursing consciousness. Annette repeats this a lot in her training. We cannot change the culture without changing the consciousness. So the foundation of this training is working with your mindset, with your consciousness, with your soul, and your heart and your spirit and your inner divine. Because we are all simply divine. In your sacred inner space, your great spirit, your Holy Spirit, the Christ consciousness, the Buddha, the Lord, the source, the force, this is the heart of the practice. Without the heart, there is no healing. Without the soul, there is no healing. The tagline and the byline on the Yoga Nursing website on the banner is expanding consciousness and healthcare, because that is the why. Annette will say that the reason why she created Yoga Nursing is because she wanted to expand consciousness and healthcare. She wanted to make a difference in nursing. And in particular with Annette, as you know, she came to nursing late in life, and she saw how nurses were suffering, and that blew her mind. She had no idea until she met them and became one of them, the healthcare professionals at the front line, how much SAPS they were experiencing. And that is, as she would say, when the lightning bolt hit. And of course, again, that's all in the training and the curriculum. And it also mentions in each training, and so of course I'm going to mention it here now, that she wants us to read the book, The Yoga Nurse's Story. It was included in the online Yoga Nursing Essentials. I know it was mentioned in her live trainings. And that expects us to read the book. I suspect we may well have already read it, perhaps more than once, but if you haven't, definitely pick it up. But she does want to round out all of that theory, all of the fundamentals. She wants them to come alive for us. She wants to show us how to integrate these theories and fundamentals into our own practice. And also to make a healthy living, to work the hours we want, to work the kind of nursing you want, to work and serve the people you want to serve that get you and that get what you're giving. Is everyone going to get you? No. But those that need what you have will come. There is more than enough, much more than we can dream. And these people want and need what you have to give. In order to give, one must tap into the source of that giving. So we are expanding consciousness in healthcare. Now, Annette would say if she was standing there with Oprah, she might not say, I'm expanding consciousness in healthcare, because she might lose her. But then she would chuckle and say, not really, though, because Oprah would totally get that. And I think most of us in nursing, and from what I read about your shares, you already get people on a very deep level. So you would kind of know what to say that they would get. The average person may not get that. I'm expanding consciousness in healthcare. So here's where we can say with absolute 100% full of faith confidence that they'll get it. We're relieving stress, anxiety, pain, and suffering. We're creating peace, health, and wisdom. Yoga nursing is a union of ancient yoga with modern nursing. It's another variation. What is the mission and vision statement? The expectation, if you're going to present at your local nursing association or cardiac nursing association or med-surg nursing association or leadership association in your state or in your town, of which there are hundreds who are looking to you to bring a program to them, they are looking for speakers and leaders all the time. You're aware of this. You've probably attended these conferences. Now with training and practice, you can be the expert with your message and how are you positioning yourself? What is your product, your service? How are you packaging? Yoga nursing is giving you the packaging, ready to go. It's just going to be with your own self, your own personality, your own way, your own style, presenting and sharing. I loved I call it an excuse. It was really an opportunity, but for me it was an excuse because when I first took the yoga nursing training, even before I became certified, I knew that I wanted to bring yoga nursing to a larger audience. And so I first made that known at my local Kentucky Nurses Association meeting, and I was quickly invited to speak at an upcoming meeting. There was a nurse educator in the group that took care of all the paperwork. I didn't have to do a thing other than turn in my resume and my objectives. She turned it into the Kentucky Nurses Association. It was approved. I got to share it with about 40 nurses in a crowded restaurant. No PowerPoint, just a 2-page handout. I went over the basics while we were eating, and then we went into an abbreviated version of the Sacred Remedy, and they loved it. And then I took it to a lunch and learn at my local mental health facility. The facility did a great thing. They spotted for pizza for everybody, so we actually had a pretty good turnout. It was recorded, which was wonderful. I got to see me present. It got great feedback. Presenting there ultimately led to my being able to teach yoga in the mental health facility 2 hours a week, a group of adolescents, a group of adults. I'm now per diem at that facility, so I have a lot more control over my time when it comes to that. But the point is that the opportunities are there. Eventually it pays. You have to start somewhere. We all have to walk the walk before we talk the talk. And when Annette speaks about money, because everyone wants to know, well, how much can I get paid? What can I get paid? So I'm going to share really specifically from Annette the information that Annette gave to us. I'm going to be really specific with this because I'm not quite there yet. I look forward to be. I know that every presentation I give, I'm one step closer to manifesting opportunities that are going to pay me, that pay me well. Annette shares a story that when she first started doing speaker training, when she first started presenting, she didn't really know what to charge. She shared the story that she was invited by a home health hospice organization to share stress relief with yoga nursing. They asked Annette how much, and she said, oh, I don't know. She's kind of scratching her head. And then she said, well, how about $300? They did not bat an eyelash, she would say, for a 50-minute presentation. And it was in her hometown, so she didn't even have to travel. So Annette would relay how wonderful it felt for her to drive down the road to the beach to teach stress relief to home health hospice nurses. She taught them in a 50-minute version, gave them some relaxation tools that they could apply immediately. And $300, that was good. And of course, people want to know how much she gets paid now. They're curious. I was curious. And what Annette says that I am at liberty to say, she's in full disclosure, with the understanding that this information is confidential in our tribe to those that have completed the certification. What Annette shares is that her current fee is between $1,500 and $2,250. And if they bring Annette to New York for Nurses United, the largest nurses union, when they bring her to New York, they fly her in, put her up in a nice hotel. When she did that, she did 2 back-to-back 50-minute sessions. That was 2 years ago. I remember her relaying that was during Hurricane Sandy. And at that time, Annette would say she really didn't know what to ask for that type of organization. So she asked for $1,500. Because when she started asking some nurse professional speakers, what are you charging? What can be expected? The prices are all over the map, depending on the size of the organization. And it is true in some cases, we may be doing it for free so we can get the word out, so we get invited. What's really nice, I've done a handful of presentations where I've gotten a small stipend, a gift card, or a small check. $50 here, $75 there. But it feels so good to have that exchange of energy. It feels so good to add a presentation to my portfolio. It feels so good to connect with nurses I might not otherwise have an opportunity to connect with. So the point in all this is, of course, Annette would say, is to just get comfortable standing up in front of a room and delivering a message. And this may or may not be an issue for you. I've read your shares. I know many of you are already very outgoing and very accomplished and already teaching and teachers. But we know this is one of the hardest parts for a lot of people. One of the biggest fears, the stress, anxiety, pain, and suffering, the fear underneath it all is speaking out, speaking up, being heard. So we want you to be able to hone your speaking skills in whatever way is needed. We want to give you a chance to practice this and present yourself during the webinars. We want you to be able to speak up with one another to get over any insecurities, because we do all have our insecurities. And then we grow and we get over it. We tap into and ground in the source. And we feel ourselves at our deepest level. And when we feel passionate and purposeful with whatever our message is, that's where it's at. But of course, we were not focusing on what a good speaker we are. I know that if I'm up here focusing on how my hair looks, which I'm always self-conscious on how it looks, so there it is. But I know that if I was up here on the webinar this whole time fiddling with my hair and worrying about how I looked, I know that I would not be able to get my message across. So of course, we know that when we focus on the message, people around us usually get the message. And that helps to overcome the saps that may come from stepping into a new arena, stepping into your greatness that is calling you. You are here, we are here, because it is part of our destiny. And Annette says, and I know it's true, she is, I am, we are big believers in destiny. Or it's pretty likely we wouldn't be right here, right now. So as we're going to transition again, we're going to move into continuing to get even more comfortable with the theory and the fundamentals and look even a little bit more closely at the SAPS model. Looking at the mission statement of yoga nursing. What is the mission and vision of yoga nursing? Every movement, and yoga nursing, as you know, is a movement. Another way it could be described, and as is on Annette's website, is yoga nursing is a new order of nurses. It's a new movement in healthcare, nursing and yoga and all its variations. If you were being interviewed, and many of the CYNs are now being interviewed, we know how to describe and answer the question with subtle variations. The global nursing mission is to create a global army of modern nightingales, yoga nurses, to uplift the ailing healthcare system, to expand consciousness in healthcare, and to relieve stress, anxiety, pain, and suffering for nurses and all whom they serve. That can be kind of a mouthful, yes? So Annette would say that's everything with the whole 9 yards. But she would point out the keywords that she wants us to know. She wants us to know the opening line, the opening description. Maybe you would be giving a TED talk about TED talk. Someday you may. Wouldn't that be awesome? Or you may be giving your own mini talk as a speaker, because that's what you're doing as a yoga nursing teacher. And nurses are teachers. We're advocating. We're always there talking with our patients. Teaching our patients helps our patients. And of course, there's the nurse educators who are teaching in colleges, academic areas. So it's about getting really comfortable with speaking our mission statement. So the opening line is to create a global army of modern nightingales. Now, you may have heard me say this before. I love saying this line now, because often when I'm teaching to a group, I'll notice that there's some guys there, and I get that nightingales are girls, yeah. So I love that one day, just out of the blue, out popped my mouth. We're creating a global army of modern nightingales. And then I kind of looked around the room and I said, and of course, modern nightingales. And everybody laughed. I love including the male nurses. I love including the male nurses that way. So you don't have to say that, but I love that Annette will say that's a good example of how I made it my own. Annette also shares her own pain story. If you read the book, it's going to be familiar to you. She had a lot of relationship pain, but she would also say that it's through the saps of it all that she woke up. It was through the dark night of her soul that she came to yoga and meditation at a deeper level, even though she was practicing yoga from the time she was 17 years old. And she was in relationship. She had an autistic child. She would say that she dropped out of the world for about 8.5 years in her 30s, really good years. And she would also say that it was that she went back to yoga, and that was her saving grace. And that speaks about her working in the fashion business, taking yoga to save her sanity, dreaming about becoming a yoga teacher and making a difference. And she would also say that she's so thankful for those experiences, because being in Hollywood and being a model and actress, there was a shelf life on that world. And it helped her because it gave her the confidence to speak. She learned about marketing and promotion and all that is a part of what Annette is bringing to you. And your gifts, your life experiences, they are a big part of what you're bringing to others. So having an autistic son and a father who had many addictions, she would say no judgment, no blame. And that was all because and through the yoga. Moving on to becoming a nurse. Annette shared that it was because of the yoga that she met Deepak Chopra, the Kripalu. And she would say, he blew my mind. Nobody knew who he was back then. This was in the mid-90s. All Annette knew is that she wanted more of that. So she became a yoga teacher late in life at the age of 43. She met Deepak Chopra, trained in Ayurveda before anyone even knew what Ayurveda was or knew about Deepak. She will say that she was very lucky that she got the certification in Ayurveda. And she's also mentioned that one day we will have advanced trainings for yoga nursing licensees, Ayurveda for nurses. I know she's excited about that. All in good time. bringing Ayurveda into patient care as a nurse. Annette says that becoming a nurse was the best thing that she ever did. She wouldn't be here now if yoga nursing wouldn't come to be if she wasn't a nurse, right? Annette was teaching yoga as a yoga teacher. And that is what birthed the Sacred Remedy and the Essentials. Annette was someone who was a very successful yoga teacher, who made a living as a yoga teacher. She was so passionate about it. She is so passionate about it still. She would say that not only did she love it, it really helped her reclaim a sense of self-worth. Because she will be the first to say that she had a time when she was in self-loathing, self-pity, and it was yoga that saved her. And Annette would say that she's telling her story because she wants us to get more comfortable with sharing our pain story. Perhaps with your discretion, with your clients one-on-one. Not likely. More likely it's going to be if you go into speaker training or speaking to groups. If you're doing a group training and you've got 3 hours, or you're doing a one-on-one training like we're doing right now, and someone is paying you to coach them on a webinar from another state or your hometown, it's important for you to share a little bit of your truth and your story. That everything may not have always been all roses and all perfect. And why the yoga and why the nursing, it all comes down to the why. Annette would say she is so passionate about it because it changed her life, because it created health, peace, and wisdom for her, because it treated her stress, anxiety, pain, and suffering. It helped relieve her of the chronic addiction to suffering. So sharing a piece of your pain story is how people come to trust you, how you create a relationship. It's the part of what Joseph Campbell would call the hero's journey. You know, there was the dark night before the light. I have my own story to share, and in the interest of time, I may wait on that because I want to make sure that I cover all the material that Annette would like me to share with you today. But I trust that there will come a time when I'll share my story. And I look forward to hearing more of your stories, because even though you shared a lot with the 10 questions, I know that there's more. So I love what Annette said to me in the certification. I just resonated with it so much. And that was, again, about we are all bringers of light. But first we must go through the dark in order to get to the light. And the fact is, life is going through the dark and into the light, and through the dark and into the light. And of course, she will be the first to admit that life isn't all light now, even for her. But she just doesn't live there anymore. And through my knowing Annette, that is certainly what's inspiring me to also not live there anymore. It's the heart of yoga and the spirit of yoga and the soul of yoga that transformed Annette and transformed me. And I believe probably transformed you. So Annette has been brought in to teach stress relief to different hospitals and organizations and teaching healthcare workers. And, you know, during that time early on is when she really saw them up close and personal and saw how much saps they have. And again, that's when the revelation came. That's when she was called. And she will say that yoga nursing is a calling. It's a mission. And now you've been given a mission too. What is your mission? What is your why? Who do you want to serve? How do you want to serve them? Did I love? Did I serve? Did I make a difference? Annette mentions Brendan Burchard and how he has done things a little differently, and yet she still was able to get inspiration from him, just as she knows you have. But she's making it her own. And she asks us to be inspired and to make it our own in terms of your absolute why. Are you thinking about your why? To create a global army of modern nightingales, yoga nurses, to relieve stress, anxiety, pain, and suffering, to improve the quality of life for nurses and their patients worldwide. Variations? It's in your curriculum, it's in your training. Any of these will work. The key is to get the start right. I am part of a global movement of modern nightingales and modern nightingales. Yoga nurses, we relieve SAP, stress, anxiety, pain, and suffering for nurses and their patients. We can put in, we are expanding consciousness in healthcare or uplifting healthcare, all variations on the same theme. Depends on your elevator speech. Annette said she created over 150 different short clips to come up with variations on honing her what, why, and my what and my who. The who, what, she calls it within our training. So let's take a deep breath in. Sigh it out. Deep breath in. Sigh it out. Let's take a little stretch here too. If we practice Cobra, if we take our hands in the simplest form of Cobra, by putting your hands behind your back or behind your back on the chair, lifting your shoulders up, back and down. 3 times. Shoulders being up, back, and down. Already we're opening up the airway. ABCs, nurses, ABCs of nursing, and the ABCs of yoga nursing. Do you know them? A for awareness, B for breathing, C for circulation. Already that's a simple version of Cobra. If and only if you want to go deeper, press your hands a little bit more into the back of your chair. Lift up your chest, squeeze your shoulder blades together. And if and only if you do not have any injuries, perhaps lift the chin, drop the skull, open the chest. Breathing in and out. Slowly coming out. And in the yoga nursing model, always moving slowly because it brings safety. Steadiness. Comfort. Foundational things in yoga. Are you comfortable? Are you steady in your posture, in your movement, in your life, in your thinking, in your teaching, in your nursing, in your loving, and your caring? So after we do Cobra, the next movement from a seated position, moving into the seated forward fold, relaxing the back of your body, dangling your arms, opening up your knees, allowing a little space for your tummy. If you've got high blood pressure that's unmedicated, keep your head above your heart. You can put your hands on your knees or cross your elbows. Resting your elbows on your knees, relaxing your forehead on your hands, releasing the spine, releasing the low back, releasing the bliss chemicals that we manufacture. And then slowly lift up. And we continue. This is how we weave theory with practice. You could, in the future, teach a 3-hour training in yoga nursing, which you are licensed to do. We have a 3-hour program which is approved by the American Holistic Nursing Association to give free continuing education credits. Angela, among the first 3 certified yoga nurses in my class of 3. So if you have 3 hours to fill, you're integrating the theory of yoga nursing with a practice. And if you were giving a mini version in 3 hours, if you were with me live at Kripalu, you might have had a sense how that would play out. So again, there's a lot in your curriculum, in your syllabus, and the recordings. We are here to continually support you, even after your certification is complete. I remember feeling so relieved when Annette reiterated this. So hang in there, everybody. We're kind of in the final stretch. I love that Annette also shares that she thinks of herself as everyone's mama yoga nurse. I love that she's in her 60s. I love that she has students of all ages. And I love how she relates to everyone. Okay, so we're going to touch on what Annette would call the deeper stuff here in terms of theory and mindset and expanding consciousness. Because yoga nursing, by its definition, the tagline or byline is we are expanding consciousness in healthcare, because boy, does it ever need expanding. And we know healthcare is not very conscious currently. When Annette came into the healthcare profession, and even today when she works in employee health, she still works per diem. She still wants to have a finger on the pulse of nursing. Hospitals hire her. She gets to wear her other hat as the expert, the stress relief consultant. She gets paid 2 ways. And this is how you do it. You get paid over in one place for your nursing salary. And then when you go in as a consultant or an expert, then you can begin charging at a different rate. Then your fee is a fee per service in your contract. And if I can do that, Annette would say, you can do that. And it's all a part of the marketing and the ongoing support. So healthcare not so conscious, but they want to be. They don't know what they don't know. We'll be going into that more in the next webinar. The next webinar, Annette will lay even more groundwork for expanding consciousness. To change, to help people transform their SAPs, whether they're living with it or whether they're going to die from it. Because a yoga nurse helps a person live in peace and to die in peace. Annette shares a story about being with her mother when she was a nursing student, and her mother was dying from COPD. And Annette was there when she passed. But Annette helped her to live her last days in peace. And that was despite that it had not been an easy relationship with her mother. It was a battle, she would describe. But she also is compassionate. She knew that her mother was full of saps. But she had reason. She didn't have the tools for transformation. That is why we suffer, because we want things to be different. We want more of something. We want better. We want different. We can't accept what is. Because we are constantly in resistance. We're living in the past. We're living in the future, and it's all fear-based. It's all what's going to happen to me, or what if I don't get this, or what if I don't get that? And our healthcare system and our colleagues and our patients are full of it. And your job is to help relieve the saps, to give them some peace. So how to have the wisdom to know the difference. Yoga nursing is a union, again, of yoga and nursing. We love the word union because yoga means union. It's a definition of yoga. You know this, and how many of us have experienced it. We may get it intellectually, but we all know it's in the knowing. It's the seeing. It's the awareness. The ABCs of yoga nursing: awareness. First, I start with being aware. What am I seeing in my body, feeling in my body, present? with my patient, with my family, with my loved ones. Always coming back to the awareness of constant meditation. It is a constant meditation. And of the source, coming back to the source, to the union, the home of the union, the original union, the state of union in yourself, in your nursing community, in nursing in general, of creating a community, a commune. This is what it is. This is our work, our sacred service, to help people to wake up. Annette has described that she had a heavy-duty wake-up call. She got a lot of spiritual teachers, and by the grace of God, she was able to learn from them. And some of these are the very heart of what she is teaching here with you. And of course, all these things have been distilled through Annette's experiences, just as I distill it through my own experiences. But fundamentally, we're helping people to transition from a fear-based consciousness to a place where there is love. Because where love exists, fear cannot live. And so by bringing them into an experience of the sacred breath, a sacred remedy, sacred movement, sacred rest, we bring them to an experience of peace, founded in love. What is another name for God, or the holy or sacred? God is love. God is love. God is love. But what if someone doesn't know what love is? Maybe they've never had love. Maybe they had lousy experiences with love. It's the seeking of the physical love in the form that causes the suffering. When we go to the heart of love, the source of love, divine love, then we can be with whatever we are given in terms of the form and how it shows up in your body, in your life, your relationships, your joy, your wonderful, loving relationships, as well as the ones that are the great teachers. And so Annette also shares, and again, this was so reassuring for me because I'm a bit of a perfectionist. I remember she says, there are no mistakes so long as you learn. There are no mistakes so long as you learn. And the most important lesson is to return to love, which is why Annette is so strong on meditation. So whatever it is that we are given, the practice is to learn how to be with it instead of constantly struggling and fighting it, fighting the administration, fighting the guy and fighting the gal, fighting the mother and fighting the child and fighting the system. There's a whole lot of fighting going on in nursing right now. We'll talk more about that in an upcoming webinar, and that speaks about the JAB concept. That's J-A-B. So expanding consciousness in healthcare. You cannot expand the culture without expanding the consciousness. Change your consciousness. Change the culture. It all starts there in yoga, in union with the divine. In yoga, the number one sign cause of all suffering, stress, anxiety, pain, and suffering. Separation from our divinity, from our holy divine, from our Godhead, from our Goddess head. That we are separate, that we are afraid we are alone. And there is no God, there is no purpose, and what the heck is it all about? And why should I even bother? Annette would say, and I would agree with her now, I can laugh about it. But we couldn't always. Now we've lightened up because we let in the light, because we were led to the light, because we keep returning to the light. And that's why it's called a practice. One cannot become a great nurse or a great musician or a great chef or a great writer or a great teacher or a great speaker without practicing. It has been said you have to do something for 10,000 hours before you have mastery. I know, and Annette knows, that each of you has mastery in different areas. That's what brings you each into that expert category that Annette and I want you to position yourself in. That you don't fall into the trap of saying you're, quote, just a nurse, because there's no such thing. Yoga helps us to reconnect, to be in unity with the simply divine. Do I say that when I'm working with a patient or with a group? Annette would say, as is her answer for many things, and I love this, it depends. It depends on who I'm talking to. Annette would not bring up the feared God word or goddess or Christ consciousness or Buddha because everyone is so separated. Because people have this theory that my God is better than your God, or, oh my, let's go to war about that, because we all want to be right. Annette would say that there's so much in the way of attacking. I want to attack you so I can show you how right I am. And we live in this. And this is a source of saps. In the smallest ways that we can want to prove ourselves right, that we feel better, that we feel worthy. So we build our ego. This is what's called the ego. We get into the deep stuff here because Annette would say that we're not interested in the superficial. If you want the licensing and the certification, and I know that's why you're here, we're here because we want to go for the gold. And that's going to the heart. And when you go to the heart of the matter, that's where you make a difference. So that's what we're teaching today. Not because we're simply teaching you 7 essential postures. What's behind that you're receiving? What did you receive through the website, through her live trainings, through Annette's curriculum? Somehow something was communicated to you that was bigger than just the postures. It's the movement, the yoga nursing movement that likely moved you. And when you are moved, you can move others. Tapping into the source of that which is moving, creating a new patterning, a new way of moving and expanding the consciousness. And that is that we are returning to love, moving from fear to love. Ourselves first, self-care first, then extend it to others. So that is what you're bringing. We're bringing much as what Annette describes in her book, The Richest Woman in Babylon, Manhattan. Have you read it? It's written for nurses and yoga teachers. It's about $13 on Amazon. The truth never goes out of style. The truth is always in fashion. And that is what you are bringing as yoga nurses. You are bringing something timeless and ageless, that which is the practice, the teaching that you're bringing. You're cultivating your spirit. Annette speaks about the heart of her practice, and going forward, I know that she will teach you more about her style of meditation, but you're getting a little feel for it now, because here's how she would describe it. It's coming into the awareness, the I am, not the I am this or the I am that, not the I am not good enough or I am great, I am too fat, I am too thin, I am too lazy. What comes before this is just I am. That's what we are resting in. We are resting in the I am. We are resting in what contains all of your thinking and your thoughts and your consciousness, the space that holds it all. It's been there ever since you were a child. The thoughts have changed. Like a screen. A movie screen stays the same. It's just the movie that changes. I love that. The yoga philosophy. So don't take it so seriously. The way to relieve SAPS is to come back to reality. And you bring your students there through the sacred remedy. You don't have to tell them about the I am and so on, although one day you may. What Annette says, and again, this is so wonderful for me to hear, is the generous way Annette is sharing these teachings and trainings with us is because she will say, I cannot keep doing all of this alone. I cannot do all of this forever. So one day, perhaps you too can be doing certifications like this in your state. Right now, you're being certified and licensed to teach the essentials, the basics, the training. But I'm a perfect example of how it happens, it comes. So we're moving from a state of fear to love. So I'm just going to finish with something that Annette shared shortly before she took questions at the last training. She's telling it as a story. And she was sharing about being in New York for a presentation. Everyone was full of SAPs. Hurricane Sandy had just come through. The conference was still going, but planes were coming in and out. And it was hard to know if it was safe to go there. It's nothing but fear, 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 fear. Fear from a disaster, Mother Nature, a disaster like 9/11. Annette would say she had 15 minutes with those nurses to get something across to them, to touch their hearts, to make a difference. She was successful according to the feedback. And this is what she gave them. She gave them a mantra they could use as they continued to walk the walk through the fear and so on. A nursing light, so to speak. She offered up this mantra, God goes with me wherever I go. So you can teach this in a 50-minute seminar. Teach the essentials and give them a mantra. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are not comfortable with the God word, I get that, I respect that. You can say to yourself, repeat to yourself, love goes with me wherever I go. Love goes with me wherever I go. And so may love go with you wherever you go. Let's take a deep breath in and sigh it out. Okay. Okay, thank you. Well, thank you all so very much for joining me, and I look forward to staying in touch. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the meeting.